Alright, hello everybody, this is Tainted Donut here again. We're going to break down another one of these here premium ships. This time, it's going to be the Blyskawica. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but commonly just also referred to as the Bliss. So, there's a little bit of controversy around this ship, and that revolves around it being originally advertised as being able to stealth fire in open water, and then Wargaming removing that. And then never kind of compensating the ship. And some people are going to say, oh, the ship's fine. Some people are going to say it really does need a buff. And we're going to kind of go through the numbers and kind of go over some of the stuff and reasons why people say what they say about it either way. So, kind of going down the line, first things first, you're the standard Tier 7 DD, the 16mm plates. Nothing special there. The super thin gun shields. Doesn't really matter. You're going to get hit. You're going to take damage. It's kind of how it goes with this. So nothing quirky on its armor scheme. Survivability, past the armor, she's got a nice chunk of hit points at 15.5. It gives her the ability to take quite a few overpens from ships at her tier, with going to be taking, about 1,200 to 1,000 from most BB AP overpens, and, roughly 500 from most of the cruisers at this point. So, again, not too shabby on the hit point pool. It gives her a lot of survivability. That's one of the bonuses. So, that's the survivability, that's a good thing, and by the way, that ship goes out without a perk. Should go over the captain builds, too. There's really two schools of thinking on how to play the Bliss. One is you're going to use AFT and stay as far away from the battle as you can to rain your shells in. Another is to actually take inertial fuse and actually stay in relatively close. Now, as you can see, I have a 19-point captain, so this is as good as the skill tree is going to get. Preventive maintenance, kind of a must for DDs in general. You've got to have it. Some people do like to take priority target. I found that I just didn't have enough points for this build the way I was doing it, because last stand is very vital. It's, again, you got to have it on a DD. I took Adrenaline Rush because you're a gunboat, you're going to get hit, so hey, why not speed up the damage, your damage output for taking a little bit of damage. Again, I took the basic fire training, again, speed up that damage output, really, hammer those shells in, plus 10% to the firing rate, because her guns will qualify. Demo Expert is a must, because she's going to be HE spamming, plus it will offset the penalty from the inertial fuse, and then increase it by an extra 1% beyond that, and again, always vital on almost every ship class is that Concealment Expert. So again, a lot of people will tell you to take the advanced fire training from the range. I really think it's going to come down to your personal preference. If you want to be in closer for some more kind of well-placed shots that the inertial fuse will give you, and the reason I say that is because with the inertial fuse, it bumps the penetration of the HE shells to 26mm. And this is a huge deal because this means you're penetrating those 25mm bows found on Tier 6 and 7 battleships and up to Tier 8 cruisers. Some of the Tier 9 cruisers, if I'm not mistaken, the Rune has the 27mm, so you're not going to pen her. I think Baltimore might as well. If I'm wrong on this, somebody please correct me. I'm going off the top of my head. But even still, some of those Tier 9 cruisers still only have those 25mm bows. So you can still target the hull, the front and rear sections of the hull, and do damage. You don't have to worry about hitting the superstructure. In a lot of cases, you can still hit those upper belts. So it makes the hitbox very, very forgiving. So you don't have to be as precise with your aim. So you can zip in at your max range. I usually try to stay like 10, 12, fire off some rounds and get quickly out of range at that 12-kilometer mark. And, you can pound out a lot of damage. You start hitting for 2,000 to 3,000 with an HE salvo because you're just hammering through that armor with the inertial fuse. But again, some people will tell you to do the advanced fire training, and I see the wisdom. You stay out further, you don't take the hits, you stay in the game longer by basically evade tanking versus going in, hitting and fading. So again, 6 in one, half dozen in the other on that one. Pick your poison, your play style you want. But back to our hard stats. So, when I brought up the inertial fuse, again, you have 120mm guns, so plus 30% to the 20mm penetration is going to give you that 26mm pen. Their fire chance right here is basically as good as it's going to get on my build, 10% per shell. So if you don't take the inertial fuse and you do the long range shooting, you're going to get 11%. That's crazy with flags and captain for a DD at tier 7. When you have 7 guns, you're kind of getting a high chance that you're going to get a fire almost every third salvo pretty reliably, as long as your target's not already on fire or survival spec. Rate of fire, 5.9 second reload is pretty good, and again that is buffed. So again, it's a very solid reload, very good DPM on it. The AP shells, the AP is actually pretty solid. I was doing some playing around with it earlier today, and you can put holes in cruisers at a good distance with it. I still think the HE is more reliable, but when you get in close, if somebody's going to go flat broadside, you can get yourself some citadels with them, and that's always key. The other thing to point out is that muzzle velocity, 900 meters per second, and they fire relatively flat. They're very easy to hit fast-moving targets, and that is key for it. You're not going to be so good firing over terrain because of the flat arc, but that is the trade-off between those two aspects. Next are torpedoes. Here is where she's a little in the weak column. 2 sets of 3 with a 70-second reload time is nice. They reload really fast. You can spam them out a minute and 10 seconds. They spin real quick, 100. Not that that's really ever too much of an issue, but their damage is really low, 14.4. Their range is 8 kilometers, which is relatively average for the tier. The detectability is really good at 1.2. You're not going to find too many torpedoes more stealthy than this that aren't labeled deep water. So they have their ups and their downs. The real problem is combined with their concealment, it's going to be really hard to use them from stealth. People are kind of see and probably expect there to be torpedoes in the water. So you use them for ambush, or if you don't have concealment expert, you can't really stealth torpedo them. So really they're great for ambush, close-in knife fighting, or that if you're careful with concealment expert, you can get them out as standard torque loading. AA defense, again, we're talking to a DD here, so those of you who play the game know AA on a DD it's there, but don't expect to shoot down a lot of planes, especially when you only have a total of 6 emplacements. They'll get knocked out relatively easily, relatively early. An AA range of 1.2 and 3.5 isn't going to do a lot for you. Now it's the good news. Max speed is 41 knots with a speed flag, so she's just under that without it, and then when you hit that speed boost, she really kicks up. Her turning circle is a little rough with the 610 and the 4.6 second rudder shift. She's a little sluggish on the rudder compared to her in-tier contemporaries. Makes her kind of an easy target to hit, especially that she's very tall. If you look where her water line is here, she's sitting up pretty high. Use that as the backdrop. So she is pretty tall, but at the same time, she's also relatively narrow and not terribly long. But with the way the dispersion really works, with vertical dispersion being one of the key things, being tall is not your friend. So, again, she's a little fat, a little slow to maneuver. And then we get to concealment. This is the best you can get her at, is 6.8. You're talking about over 7 concealment. I believe it's 7.4 without concealment expert. That is brutal. I mean, utterly brutal. So again, those torpedoes with 8 kilometers, you're not stealth torping unless you have concealment expert. Her air detectability is pretty solid. Her smoke firing actually is a little larger than some of the other DDs at her tier, which is a little quirky, but it's not horrible. It's only 0.3 kilometers. It's not really a big deal. If they're charging your smoke, they're going to see you if it's 2.5 or 2.8. They're going to charge you. So again, that smoke firing is still very usable for her. So we have that. Then let's look at some of the modules on her. I run the standard build. You got to have that rudder shift time. I do like to tighten up the dispersion because, again, that's how you get those killer hammering HE 2 to 3K HE salvos on cruisers. You can run main armaments mod, or I would also recommend magazine mod to keep those detonations in place. I'm usually running with a det flag on mine, so I'm not worried about the ammo, the explosion. And hey, if I run out of det flags and I explode, I get more det flags. So another one that for me personally is I think the steering gears modification you get more mileage out of than any other ones, because even with Last Stand you want your steering gears up as quickly as possible. Other option here is you can take the engine. Again, I think that's a personal preference one, 6 in one, half dozen in the other kind of deal. Take your pick. So, all said and done, would I recommend the Bliss? Yes, and at the same time I would say no. And I will explain my yes and my no. If you don't mind taking the time and investing in a captain, and I mean heavily investing to get at least a 14-point captain, or don't mind blowing the elite or free XP to get the 14-point captain, you can have yourself a tier 7 monster. If you don't want to take that time, you want a ship that out of the box is going to perform, then you have to steer clear of the ship. Because until you get Concealment Expert or IFHE or Advanced Fire Training, both of them, your ship is really at a handicap. She needs either the longer range or to be able to deal the damage very, very quickly and then fade out. Without it, it's really going to be a struggle. I do like the ship, I really do, but I'm playing with a 19-point captain. So like I said, I'm going to say yes and no. If you don't mind taking the time and investing and building her up into her full potential, then by all means grab her. But if you're looking for something that you want it now, you want playable, close to its peak performance, you're gonna want to steer clear of this one. So there you have it. That is my take on the Bliss. And well, if anybody has any comments or concerns or wants to see me really break down another ship, just leave it in the comment section.